And here we are, Thoughts from the Office, Redneck Pride Outdoors. Tell you what, it's a hot one today. Gonna be up in the 90s, mid 90s, I think. 96, something like that. The truck's got air conditioning. I gotta get my wildlife control stuff done, and then I've gotta check on Pop in the hospital, and then some other things to do. But, I want to make this video because I've talking to a lot of folks with the cage trapping, baits and lures. And I was looking forward to being at the PA convention this coming week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But with my dad's medical condition in the hospital, and I'm the guy that's got to give all the yays and nays, power of attorney medical. Doesn't look like I'm going to make it. I'm going to be there probably still for my demo because it's only a couple hours. I'm just going to drive up and drive back. But typically at these conventions, I answer a lot of questions and talk to a lot of people that's dealing with the baits and lures and what have you, on cage traps. And one of the biggest things that I see in folks dealing with cage traps is folks honestly believe that it is the bait and lure that is the end all. And I'm here to tell you it's not. And I'm here to tell you that as a bait and lure manufacturer that in 1987 specifically made my baits and lures for the use in cage traps and later on to be used with DPs. But my baits and lures was made for cage traps as taste baits and lures. And what I see is there's a lot of folks that have the misconceptions of cages. Now, I've been using cage traps a long time. I started doing wildlife control in 1980 or 1979 is when I started doing wildlife control as a service. 1979, wildlife control as a service. And obviously in wildlife control, the number one tool, especially in ADC it's not, but in wildlife control, the number one tool is going to be the cage trap in residential, where people's at, where there's dogs and cats and what have you. ADC, also, when I do ADC work, I use a lot of cage traps also, especially if I'm going after species specifics. And I don't want to deal with the hassles. Say if I'm going after raccoons, then when I catch a skunk or a possum, I can just simply dump it out of the trap and get going. If I'm after skunks, I can dump the raccoons and possums out of the traps. If I'm after possums, you get my drift what I'm saying here. Okay. So I will use a lot of cages in ADC work, but wildlife control is our number one tool. So in 1979, I started using that. And we still had the foothold traps here in New Jersey. So for most of the ADC type work in them days, I was still a fox trapper. I was still a fur trapper mindset a lot. I'm still a fur trapper mindset when I'm in fur trapping. When I'm in wildlife control or ADC, I'm in those mindsets. God's given me the ability to separate all those. I put a different hat on for each one. With that being said, catching is catching, and the tools to catch is the tools to catch. The same tools, the same concepts, the same basics, the same principles. The only thing that's different is what is the situations that you're in. All right? Anyway, that's not what this video is about. This video is about cage traps. So, starting in 1979 up till about 1986, I only used the cage trap as a wildlife control, little bit ADC. In 1986, when the foothold was no longer allowed to be used, it was banned in 1984. We had until 1986. In 1986, we went to the snare, and then we went to the cable restraint in 1987. Boring you with a lot of information, but it's important. You see, my brain back in them days in 1986 was, if I was doing wildlife control, okay, I did a certain thing. And if I was in fur trapping, I never thought about using wildlife control methods or tools because I was a fur trapper. How dare I lower myself? And I honestly believe that. I soon found out that that is not the truth. And I'm going to say something that's going to get me in trouble here, but it was wildlife control that made me a better fur trapper. That I had to be more keyed in, I had to be more in tune, I had to be more direct in wildlife control than I did in fur trapping. Why? Wildlife control, I was after the one, and then the family unit, if you will. Fur trapping, I'm just after whatever one gets into the trap. That's what it was. Getting back to the cage traps. I've used them a long time. Steady since 1986, both for my livelihood and for many years until we got the dog-proof trap in 2015. So from 86 to 2015, I had the cable restraint and the cage strap for raccoons and skunks and possums. So you know which one I went with when it came to catching skunks and possums. And because there was always a potential to catch a skunk, you knew that if I had a chance to use a cage trap, I was, because it could be a pain getting a skunk out of a snare. Or if I shot the skunk and killed the skunk, it always dribbled a little bit. It was going to stink a little bit anyhow. So I always went to the cage strap. The point I'm trying to bring up is for 30 plus years, more so than the years before that, I studied the cage strap in and out to be able to catch 80% or more. I'm not talking about the 80%, 20% concept. I'm talking about I want 85+% in my cages. So if I set 10 cages, I want 8 of them to have an animal in it within 3 to 5 days. Why 3 to 5 days? Circuits, time frames. Not every animal is there every day, okay? So within 3 to 5 days, out of 10 cages, I wanted 8 animals. I wanted an animal in 8 of those 10, okay? Now, when I give instructions and I give talks, to both fur trapping and both the ADC guys or the wildlife control guys, there is a different mindset, if you will, between them when it comes to teaching or instructing on cages. And I'm going to say it this way. Wildlife control takes instruction better than fur trapping. And I'm both. I am wildlife control, I am ADC, I am fur trapper. When I retire from wildlife control, I will still be ADC and trapper. And when I retire from ADC, I will be fur trapper to the day they lay me in the ground. I am 100% fur trapper. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I make my living from wildlife control and ADC. I gotta say that because I'm gonna piss off a few people. But what I find is, when I am talking instructions on cage trapping, the fur trapper has a harder time getting the results that the wildlife control industry does. And the reason is simple. The wildlife control industry tends to do the right things without even realizing they're doing the right things. What do you mean, Jonesy? It's simple. The wildlife control industry has, most of the time, the X location given to them. Most of the time. If a raccoon is going in and out of a house, there is the hole going in the house or building, or there is the access point where the raccoon is going up and down the corner or up and down the downspout or up and down the tree. So the wildlife control, without even realizing it, okay, doesn't have to look for X location. They don't even have to look for general location. Why? They're at the general location, then they find the X location. Two locations, which is key to being successful with a cage trap. So without even realizing it, most wildlife control people have those given to them. Where us as fur trappers, me, okay, when I go on a job, I look at general, I look at the house, I find the access point onto the house, whether it's for raccoons, squirrels, aardvarks, hippopotamuses. I find the access point onto the house, and then I find the entry point going into the house. I have 2 X locations right there given to me. I only got to figure out the other things that we're going to talk about right in here. Okay. You as a fur trapper, me as a fur trapper, I can find the general. Okay, what is general? Boy, that's I don't know that proper English term, to trappers that have experience, we can find the general location very easily. We know how to use topo maps, we know how to use aerial maps, we know how to read the lay of the land and all that. But the one thing I find is most fur trappers have a hard time finding the X when it comes to a cage trap. Why? It's simple. Most trappers are foothold trappers. Most trappers are going to put the trap, cage trap, where they would put a foot trap. And when we look at the cage strap, on what it is, the cage strap, contrary to what anybody wants to believe, the cage strap is a negative. Now, it's not a negative that they're afraid of. It's not a negative in which they're going to avoid. Well, some of them do. A lot of them do, actually. But that's not the negative I'm referring to. I'm referring to it is a brand new thing that wasn't there, and they know it. And I don't care how much you clean your traps. I don't care how much you spray your traps. I don't care how much you disinfect and do all that other tomfoolery stuff. There's still animal smells there in that cage strap. And when you take it to the car wash, or you take it and you scrub them down with soap and water and vinegar and bleach and everything else, you now also added other foreign smells to it. And boy, I tell you what, you want to get a barroom brawl started, oh my goodness. They can find blood, meaning criminal, investigation for criminal activity. They can find blood splatters a year after the crime has been done. Well, my English today, it really sucks. It's the heat getting to me. Anyway, they can go into the ground and find remnants of oil and other pesticides and all this other stuff. You don't believe that an animal's nose that can pick up 9 different odors at one time and can smell a human for 7+ days, that you're going to get all the smells washed off that trap? Are you really thinking that? Well, if you do, thanks. Cool, man. Great. So the first thing is, the trap is placed there. It wasn't there yesterday or 3 days from now when he comes by. It wasn't there the last time he came through. He's got odors on it, other critter odors, or your cleaning agent odors. And depending on how you set it, which most guys and gals, when they're setting up a cage strap, do not even think about this. Most folks set the cage up position-wise wrong. And they present the trap wrong. So you've got a negative that the animal may say, I don't know if I want to go in there, or I don't know if I don't want to go in there. All right, so when we're talking about that is extremely hard for the fur trapper to find location X, then place your cage in a position that the animal will want to walk right in and present it in such a fashion. And I'm not talking about covering it, I'm talking about presentation of the trap looking, feeling, being there, presented, where the animal will want to walk in rather than hesitant to walk in. I don't have time to go into this video. This video is going to be a long one, it looks like, to go over that. And that's if you want to find all that stuff out, you got to come to the South Jersey Trapping and Snaring School, January 3rd weekend. There's my plug. Newton and I are getting brand spanking new banners. Oregon is getting a banner too. So we got 3 banners, pretty banners. You should want to come just because you see the banner. Anyway. wildlife control person subconsciously will face the opening to where the animal is either getting on the house or coming out of the hole. The fur trapper has a tendency not to. And I honestly believe that echolocation and opening to walk in are the two most critical parts of the puzzle to allow the animal to want to go into a cage. Yeah, but I use a double door. Yeah, I know you do. They see through, they just want to walk through. Yeah, sometimes. It's still a negative. And what I've seen on my video cameras more often than not is the animal goes and he goes into the trap on one side, up to the pan or the triggers, eats the bait. Then he goes out and around and comes back in the other side and eats the bait from the other side of the pan and the triggers. You see, your double doors, for me, I'm going to piss a lot of people off on this one too. Your double door is the coyote walkthrough set for raccoons and such. It's the walkthrough set. It's the set where you're setting the cage up in the situation that they're going to walk straight through that area. On the trail, straight out of the hole, whatever. But when it comes to just setting that trap out anywhere you're going to set it, the double door has no advantage, folks. And I've got tons and tons and tons of pictures and videos to prove it. So, what I'm talking about here is whether you're a fur trapper, when you go out into the wilds and the back 40 and wherever you're going to go and you see that raccoon or that skunk trail, you've got to set that cage up in the spot to where the front or the opening of that trap is the first place that that critter's going to come. If it's on a trail, it's easy. If you got a double door, you can take your double door, put it right in the middle of the trail. He's going to walk right straight through it, the same as he would my cable restraints. Boom. Key number one that I'm going to bring it out to you, because I get a lot of people say I give information. I don't give out a lot of information, and I say, no, you're just not paying attention to the information I'm giving. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you an example. What I just said. Set the cage trap in the trail that the animal's going to naturally walk through, the same as I would my cable restraint. Do I have to spell it out anymore? I also will do the same with a single opening door. But if I suspect that the animal can come from either direction, for the most part, I will either use two cages, single door traps, one facing one way, the other facing the other way, 2-3 feet apart, or I do what we call the T. You want to know what the T is? You got to come to the South Jersey Trapping and Snaring School. I prefer, on these situations, the wind to be blowing straight down the trail, but we both know that's not an absolute, and that is a give me cherry on top when it happens. Most of the time, the wind is not going to be blowing down that trail. So the only advantage to that is that trail, the animal is used to walking on that trail already, so you're not the little bit of a negative you're adding to it is not a negative to deter them. They're already used to going down that trail, and they're going to go down that trail. I don't cover the bottom of my traps. I know a lot of people will. I don't cover the sides of my traps. If the vegetation covers it, great. If it doesn't, oh well. So what? Okay? Another thing I'm going to add at all times, no matter what and how and where I'm setting a cage trap, I set my cage trap with bait and lure. 80% are going to walk right through that trap. 20% may not. 10% will say, uh-oh. 10% out of that 20 will say, uh-oh. 80-20 concept. So, I don't take chances of, yeah, he's going to go through that. I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to make sure the invitation is there. I'm going to make sure the vacancy sign is up. I'm going to make sure that I have covered all my bases. I don't get my pride from catching an animal the way I want to catch the animal. I get my pride from catching the animal the way the animal wants to be caught. In other words, do what I got to do. Location is the same thing. You know, with a foot trap, we're talking about a little bit different thing. With a foot trap, you're talking about your corners, you're talking about your eyesight, you're talking about that spot, and we're positioning the hole, we're positioning everything for him to step on the cage, or on the trap rather. Okay? With cages, I've learned over all these years to treat it more like a cable restraint. I need them to put their head in it. Same general location, just different X. And what I find is most fur trappers, most wildlife control folks, both have no idea what's going on around their trap. They come, they look at it, they say, oh, guess we didn't catch anything. Turn around, walk off. Every cage trap I set. So when I come back tomorrow, I know exactly what happened. I know, was there an animal there? Was there not an animal there? Is the animal trap shy? Is the animal trap smart? These are all things that I do when I'm setting up my cages. I don't want any mysteries. I don't want to wait 3 days wondering what's going on. I want to know tomorrow what is going on. I come back tomorrow, and what I did wasn't disturbed at all. No way, shape, or form. Then the animal wasn't there. I've got to have patience wait for him back, come back. If I'm after raccoons, it's going to be a 5 to 10 day schedule. If it's limited numbers of animals. If it's a high population of animals, that's a different story. But that individual animal is going to be on a 5 to 10 day schedule. So if you have 10 critters, meaning 10 raccoons, then theoretically, you could have a raccoon on a different 5 to 10 day schedule, which could get you a critter every night. That's why you hear me talk about 5 to 10 days. 5 to 10 days, 5 to 7 days, 5 to 7 days. Okay? So when I come back, I know exactly what's going on. And if nothing was messed with, I got to wait it out. If I see that the raccoon or animal is showing me that they're trap smart, then I've got to do some things with the trap, position-wise, presentation-wise, to make him to fool him into going to the trap. A trap smart raccoon, a trap smart skunk can be caught in a cage trap. I just got to present and position the trap a little bit different. If I come back and I see that the animal is trap shy, well, I'm going to a different method, probably a DP trap or something like that. Why? He's trap shy. He's not going to go near. He's not going to go in the trap. And I'm not going to spend the time to try to get him into the trap unless I'm pissed and it's become personal. Okay, I've bored you enough with the cages. Again, if you want more on this information, the third weekend of January, South Jersey Trapping and Snaring School will have 3-4+ hours of cage trapping instruction alone. I remember the first school we had, Newton Morgan was there, and I started to do the cage trapping, and at first, Newton Morgan was kind of like doing what we as instructors do and another instructor's talking. Kind of like, just we're there, we're listening, but we're not listening, You know how it is. The other guy's doing this thing, or the other gal's doing her thing, and we're just keeping an eye out just to answer a question or cover something that he didn't cover, or, bring his attention back, or whatever. We do it to each other. So I noticed Newton Morgan sitting there, not paying attention. Why? Because every good trapper honestly believes they know what they're doing with cage traps. It's a cage trap. It's bait. Put the bait in it and catch the stinking animal. Remember what I said in the very beginning? Listen, the bait is 25% of the equation. The bait is 25% of the equation. And I'll be honest with you, I have caught critters in cages with no bait because I understood position and presentation and location. Location, position, presentation. That order. But anyway, Newton Morgan, when I first started talking, he was doing the, whatever. Within a few minutes, I noticed all of a sudden Newt is standing right there on his knee, or not standing, but he's on his knees right there next to me, watching my hands in the cage. And I said to him, "What are you doing?" He says, "You know and I know. When you want to learn something, you listen to the words, but watch the hands." Newt later on said, "I thought I knew how to work a cage strap until Jonesy gave that educational information, and then I realized I didn't know nothing about cage straps." I'm not patting myself on the back here. I learned this over all these years of struggles, all these years of flat out beating my head against the wall, watching raccoons, watching squirrels, watching skunks not go into my traps. And I had to figure out why. And just about the time I start getting prideful right now, God gives me a squirrel that won't go into a cage, or God gives me a groundhog that won't go in a cage, or God gives me a raccoon or skunk that won't go in a cage, dumb skunk that won't go in a cage. It all goes back to when I was about 20, 21 years old. I prayed, "God, if you give me the wisdom of the outdoors and the understanding of the animal, I will use that to further your gospel. And you know what? That's the only thing I can give credit to. Hey, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there. I'm hoping that something can happen that I can still get to the PA convention this coming week coming. But it doesn't look good. Pray for my dad. Pray for me that I got the strength to deal with all this stuff that I got to deal with right now. Hopefully I'll still be there to do the demo. I'll talk to you later. Redneck's Pride Outdoors. Adults from the office.